God damn it, the United Healthcare CEO had to have the claim for his next breath denied yesterday. My wife has to go into the office once in a quarter. It's like an hour and 20 drive. She's not a big fan of driving and she's got to get up at the ass crack of dawn, so I drive her in for it every once in a while and make it easier on her. And I recorded a couple videos yesterday, so I had a video all ready to go today, and then the United Healthcare CEO has to go get whacked, and now I got to talk about it, because, like, come on, I got to talk about it, and now I got to talk about it like I'm doing a goddamn truck rant in my wife's Honda Civic. Because it's 10 degrees out there, it's too goddamn cold to wander around the parking lot like a weird ranting homeless person, and I don't think the people at the coffee shop would appreciate this. But it's fine, it's fine. We can't choose when these gifts are bestowed upon us. And I will make do with what the Lordeth have giveth. It's so dumb. By now, you've probably all heard that Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare, the largest health insurer in the country, probably the world, because, you know, America, got straight up fucking Hollywood-style assassinated in broad daylight in Manhattan in front of his building before an 8 a.m. meeting. And the internet is having a fucking field day. I gotta tell you, it is restoring my faith in humanity just a tad. I mean, let's be real, it's starting to feel just a tad French up in here, because they've been telling us to eat cake for a while now, and we didn't have any, right? But somebody's finally decided to start breaking some eggs. And there's clearly no love lost here for the Marie Antoinettes of our time. And you know, these rich fucks should be starting to get a little bit of a hint. After being mocked for their super successful high-definition Titanic experience, and being made fun of for killer whales giving them a high-definition Titanic experience, and now I'm pretty sure there's gotta be brick-and-mortar meme factories pumping out memes by the moment making fun of them being gunned down in the street. And you'd have to think that their spidey sense would be telling them, you know, maybe we've pushed the oppression just a tad too far. They won't, because they're morons. But you'd think that they would, right? But I gotta admit, it is sad that as a society, we've gotten to a point where it's not even that we don't give a shit about a husband and father being gunned down in the street. It's making us chuckle just a tad. But I have noticed that there is a few people out there from my comments and some other people's comments that haven't quite caught up with the rest of society's cynicism and disdain for the people who have the boot on our necks. And they've gone full deep throat with the boot leather, telling us how awful it is, that this, you know, makes us giggle. I've even seen a few people using this as a rallying cry to, you know, end gun violence, which is adorable. Because at least finally they're pointing the guns at the problem. So if we're gonna have violence, this is the kind to have. Here's the thing I don't think that they're connecting the dots on, is that not we're celebrating that a person was murdered and a family was left widowed and fatherless. My heart truly does go out to that wife and children who are undoubtedly suffering immense grief, and I'm really happy that they have a support system that involves piles and piles and piles of money to dry their tears with. Who knows, it could even be enough money where one of his kids will grow up to be Batman now. Just saying, silver linings, you know, because it's really truly a blessing that a lot of people don't have in these times of need. Like the countless people who have died after having their health claims denied by United Healthcare, so Brian Thompson could buy that third yacht so his family has a comfortable place to grieve. But you know, their sacrifices were ones that needed to be made so United Healthcare could clear $90 billion a year in profits. And that's up from $27 billion just a decade ago, so Brian's claim denials have been doing their job. And I think that that's what people are really celebrating here, is just the comedic irony and the palpable karma of the whole thing. This man has legitimately murdered countless people and destroyed countless families. And people are just finding it difficult to locate sympathy for a mass murderer. And everybody's just having the exact same amount of empathy for Brian's death as Brian has had for every single death he's responsible for. And for y'all trying to make this a rallying cry to end gun violence, a cupcake, honey, sugar plum. One of the things directly responsible for gun violence, or if we're being honest, all violent crime in our country, because gun violence is kind of a dumb classification, just got ended. With a gun. And I don't mean that in any sort of hyperbolic or philosophical sense. Brian Thompson and his ilk is tangibly responsible for all violent crime, and really all crime in our country. He's even more directly responsible than like the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musks of our world. Because statistically, objectively, the root cause of all violent crime, or all crime really, except for white collar crime, and even kind of white collar crime, is poverty and despair. And I say white collar crime too, because to commit white collar crime, you have to be in a position where people who are poor are being exploited. And if you don't have poverty, you've got a lot less opportunity to commit white collar crime. But I'm getting off topic. Brian Thompson is personally responsible for forcing people into poverty and despair. Both in the same way that all of the rest of the rich fucks in the world are, by exploiting us to earn a little bit of extra money, but also by denying people life-saving care, by personally forcing them into crippling medical medical debt by robbing families of their providers. Like where the Jeffs and the Elons are responsible for this kind of shit on a grand scale, stealing money from society and denying us the social services of universal health care, ironically, and affordable education and housing and food. Brian Thompson was doing that as well, but also doing it to specific families. He has personally forced specific people into poverty and despair on a mass scale. And poverty and despair is what makes people commit violent crime. Or any crime. It's what makes people steal. It's what makes people drive without insurance or a license. How many children do you think had opportunities to be successful in life robbed from them because a parent was lost due to United Healthcare and Brian Thompson? How many people do you think have gone to extreme and not legal lengths to get out from underneath crippling medical debt put on them by United Healthcare and Brian Thompson? How many people do you think have taken their own lives because they couldn't get the care they needed to live a happy, healthy life, or couldn't get out from underneath the crippling medical debt that United Healthcare and Brian Thompson put on them? How many? I don't know, but I know it's a lot. You want to know why all of these other developed nations don't have the violent crime problems that the United States has? It's not because they've got less guns than us. It's because they've got more access to healthcare, education, housing, food. People aren't dying in the streets because they can't afford treatment or a roof over their heads or food in their belly. And when those very basic needs are met, people aren't forced to go to drastic and extreme lengths to meet them. And you end up with an exponentially safer society. So in a very small but measurable sense, violent crime just did something to help end violent crime. I also sort of hope the gunman doesn't get caught, not because I think anybody should get away with murder, even though Brian's been getting away with it for years, but because we don't know what his motives are, and they could be a million different things that don't involve being a real-life punisher for the greater good. As long as he doesn't get caught, his motives are whatever society needs them to be, and that is what society needs them to be. But ultimately, my point is this: nobody's celebrating that a man was murdered. They're just reveling in the cosmic comedy of chromatic irony that a man who is an integral cog in a machine that grinds people down to a level of despair and desperation and poverty that they are dying in the streets ended up, dying in the street. And trust me, none of us want to be a part of a society that's like this, where we're finding some joy in what should be considered a tragedy. But we are not the reason that we are a part of that society. And that is the comedic irony.